Hello there, friends. Today I'm out at the beautiful White Point Garden, and I'm going to continue the next section from HBR's book on running meetings. As usual with their 20-minute manager series, there is no author ascribed to whom I can give credit. In the previous episode, we shared a lot of information about preparing for a meeting. And in this section, we'll talk about actually leading your meeting. One thing I'll point out before we start is that if you have recurring meetings, which is so common in project management, then perhaps not all of these notes, tips, guidelines, pieces of advice should be taken to heart, or they're not hard and fast rules. They are guidelines that I feel are more applicable for the one-off meetings where there's something special that needs to be discussed. If there are recurring meetings, definitely consider them, but don't consider them to be rules. These are just pieces of advice for us to learn from. In any case, let's get started. Leading your meeting. Even if you've prepared carefully, you can't just arrive on time to your meeting and assume that the excellent agenda will ensure that all goes well. A skillful meeting leader needs to actively keep the gathering on track. The best meeting leaders play a number of different roles throughout the gathering. A little bit more information on these roles can be found in the previous episode, so go have a look and have a listen there. The best meeting leaders play a number of different roles throughout the gathering, all while maintaining their authority. You should expect to take on the roles of gatekeeper, devil's advocate, consensus builder, cheerleader, or even joker. Whatever encourages people to contribute and keep the team productive. Starting the meeting. You are in a leadership position from the moment you walk into the room. So set the right tone from the start. Be clear in your comments and your bearing that this gathering will not be a waste of everyone's time. You're excited about it being focused, positive, productive, and collaborative. And might even be fun too. The first advice they give is begin the meeting on time. They share, even if a few participants are missing, start the meeting as though they were there. When they arrive and discover they have missed some important points, they'll know not to be late next time. Don't back up and start again, or take time to fill in the latecomers. You'll only reaffirm their sense that it doesn't matter if they're late, and you'll frustrate those who were on time. If someone did miss some critical material, you can catch up with them after the meeting, but don't take everyone else's time to do so. The next guideline: introduce the meeting. Hold a brief introductory discussion or statement to make sure the group is clear about the agenda, objectives, and desired outcomes of the meeting, and then make any necessary adjustments based on any feedback or new information that may be shared by the participants. If participants don't know one another, take some time for personal introductions. This should include their name, department, their role in the meeting or on the project. If some of them are unfamiliar with the project, explain the context of your gathering, what has happened already, and how what you hope to accomplish today fits into the overall picture, the overall project objectives. Third piece of advice that they share: establish ground rules. You don't need to dwell on ground rules, but it's helpful to signal to participants that you intend to keep things moving efficiently. And they share 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They share 5, 6, 7 pieces of advice for you. The first item they share is reassert that you're committed to beginning and ending on time, and then really do it. Number 2, ask for everyone's participation and openness to new ideas. Number 3, agree to listen to each other and limit interruptions, and then enforce that rule as the leader. The birds are going crazy in the trees above. Number 4, clarify how decisions will be made. Let the group know right up front if this will be a group decision meeting, a meeting that calls for participants' input, or a meeting that shares a decision that has already been made. 5, explain your policy on multitasking and device use. See Managing Multitaskers later in this chapter for more details, and of course that will be in a separate talk, I think. Let's see. I don't see it in this. Oh, it's at the end of this chapter. Sorry, apologies about that. We'll talk about that later. So explain your policy on multitasking and device use during the meeting. They additionally share a couple other points. You may also need to establish ground rules for specific agenda items. They share 2 pieces. The first one is clarify constraints that exist for any issue that will be under discussion. For example, upper management decisions or policy or budget restrictions that may limit the group's range of options. So that's the first one, constraints. And then second, identify the final decision maker for each item, especially if it's not someone in the meeting, such as the CEO or department manager. If the decision maker is somebody else, identify. Remember that the ground rules for your meeting should make sense given your time constraints, the size of your group, and your meeting's intentions and goals. You shouldn't feel a need to make them rigid and overly formal. The next section, executing the agenda. You've put all that prep work in on the agenda, and you're making sure the meeting will be a success. So once you're actually rolling, don't be drawn off track to non-agenda topics. By staying on your planned path, you'll keep the meeting focused and your attendees happy, and ensure that you'll address all of your agenda items. It's a careful balance. However, since at the same time, you want to make sure that you hear all points of views from your attendees. After all, that's why you invited each of them. Keeping the meeting moving. So keep it moving. When you're in the middle of the discussion, keep an eye on the agenda and the time, or assign a timekeeper. You can be informal. It can be as simple as asking someone to raise a hand when one topic has gone on longer than 10 minutes, or even make it a little bit funny. One company created red, yellow, and green circles out of construction paper and glued them on popsicle sticks. So if a speaker was unsure how he or she was doing on time, he could look to the timekeeper, who would flash the appropriate color. Green indicated plenty of time, Yellow means 5 minutes left, and red means wrap it up now. People laughed about the method, but importantly, it worked extremely well to keep the meeting moving. As you go, summarize and review the progress of the meeting frequently and explicitly. Record the items expressed about the most important topics on a flip chart or other tool. See the box using a whiteboard, and they have an insert over here talking about using the whiteboard. When a group has come to agreement on a topic, acknowledge the fact explicitly and then move on. Highlight the transitions from one agenda item or objective to the next, and pause periodically to tell the group where you are in the meeting's agenda. This record of agreed upon points reinforces what the group has in common and prevents the group from reverting to issues that have already been settled. This is easily one of the most frustrating and annoying things about meetings, especially if they are reoccurring meetings. And you all know there are certain people, certain personalities who always want to keep rehashing and using others as a soundboard. And after the meeting is over, he'll say, hey, can one or two people stay on? Just want to discuss something, and then continue repeating the same points over and over. So obviously you can't change people's personalities and how they like to operate, but if you can reinforce that some of these items have been discussed and are answered, and we know where we stand on them explicitly and frequently, then hopefully it minimizes that to the greatest extent possible. The next piece of advice they share: make sure all points of view are heard. As the meeting leader, you'll want everyone to share their thoughts, even if your gathering is intended merely to keep people in the loop. That means you'll have all potentially crucial feedback available as you're making a decision or advancing a plan. And you'll avoid angry participants after the meeting who will grumble that their opinion didn't matter. So encourage feedback regularly. At each natural break in the session, at least after each agenda item. There are a number of ways to stimulate feedback from everyone. They share, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different rules on how to stimulate feedback from the group. Let's go through them one by one. Number 1 is the simplest. Ask a general question, such as, have we forgotten anything? Number 2, don't allow louder and more vocal attendees to dominate. They give an example. Thanks for those comments, Ed. Now let's hear from someone who hasn't had a chance yet. Let the quiet ones have a chance to speak up, or sometimes this works even better, call on them directly. Susan, we haven't heard from you yet. Are we missing any big issues here? Tom, what would be your biggest concern about this approach here? Some people might turn red, some people might be shy or feel uncomfortable, but at least you will get their opinion. Third, say that you would love feedback people think of after the meeting too, once they've had more time to reflect. I think I fall into this category. There are always things that I think of after. Oh, I have a good idea. The meeting's already over. It'll be a couple hours later. So that's a good point. As leader of the meeting, perhaps you should let participants know. If you have ideas after the fact, I'd love to hear your feedback. Share them with me. The fourth point, make sure your virtual participants are heard. For the first 5 minutes of virtual meeting, initiate some casual chit-chat with the group, particularly the remote participants. Ask about the weather, comment on a sports or entertainment event to help break the ice and set the right mood for those individuals to contribute throughout the call. It is very easy for virtual participants put themselves on mute, have the camera off, and be completely silent throughout a meeting. And they do this meeting after meeting after meeting because there's nobody speaking to them or looking at them directly. So a little bit of casual chit-chat, I think, is a good piece of advice to get more feedback from virtual participants. Fifth point, provide vocal cues for virtual attendees that they'd get visually if they were present. It can be difficult for virtual meeting attendees to speak up, interrupt, or chime in when they disagree with a colleague or want to add a different point of view, since they can't see how others are reacting. Make a point of asking the virtual attendees for feedback at crucial moments to make sure they know it's a good time to speak. Refer also to the Running Specific Types of Meetings chapter, which discusses how to run virtual meetings in more detail. The next point, if your meeting has a dozen or more participants, break the group down into pairs or trios and have each small group report back about a particular agenda item. This obviously may not be applicable for certain types of meetings, but if it does work in your situation, go for it. You might ask them to identify the top 2 issues that need to be addressed, for example, or how they would recommend priorities to be set. This ensures that even those quieter voices who don't want to speak in front of a larger group can be heard. It's a good point. There are some people who are very shy and don't want to speak, but if you get them in a one-on-one or just a small group of 2 or 3 people, they have so many great ideas and they're very friendly and outgoing, but a larger group tends to put them down a little bit. The next piece of advice, ask someone to play devil's advocate to bring different points of view to the fore, or do it yourself. Make sure that your participants see that you are open-minded about others' input. But don't let a participant attack another member's contributions. Remind them, for example, that you're using brainstorming rules. No ideas are dumb ideas. We want to encourage creativity. And I don't remember which article it was, but in a previous article, sometimes that creativity requires a little bit of deviance. Being a little bit deviant can be highly productive for teams that need creativity. The next piece of advice, when you sense you've hit upon an issue of particular interest, watch for body language that indicate someone's eager to speak. Acknowledge such people with eye contact or a nod, signaling that you see them and you'll call on them in a minute. It will allow them to focus on what's being said rather than on whether they'll get a chance to speak. It's a great tip for improving productivity, because some people get nervous, like, oh, will I get a chance to speak? And they'll try and jump in, and at that point they're no longer focusing on what other people are saying. They're now focusing on whether they'll be able to jump in or not, or looking for a point to jump in. And we want to make sure that everyone's heard. Give the group a little time to think things over. Don't be in a rush to vote or reach a decision after you've discussed an issue. Someone may have an idea later in the meeting that they will want to contribute. Say you'll come back to the decision later and move on to your next topic. The last piece of advice they give: remember the golden rule of management. Praise in public, criticize in private. All right. The next section: managing multitaskers. Discourage your attendees, whether they are in the room or on the phone at another location, from engaging in other communications during the meeting. This means no checking emails, surfing the internet, checking sports scores, or sending or replying to texts. A participant who isn't paying attention may miss an important moment in the meeting, and watching someone try to sneak in other tasks during a meeting can also drain the energy and focus of the whole team. Emphasize the fact that your ability to finish the meeting on time depends on attendees giving you their full attention, and you, the leader, shouldn't be hypocritical. No matter how tempting, don't allow yourself to peek at your smartphone notifications even briefly. If multitasking is an endemic issue, consider instituting a penalty for offenders. But remember that a touch of humor can go a long way in setting the right mood. At one company, a spinner determines a person's punishment, with the needle ending up on anything from small monetary fines to a chore such as cleaning the office coffee pot for a week. The no multitasking rule has become more difficult to enforce as the use of laptops and other devices as legitimate digital note-taking tools has become more common. Sometimes a participant does genuinely have something to do on his or her device that relates to the meeting, making a note of a follow-up item or looking up data point that pertains to the discussion at hand. And you will need to use your judgment as to whether a participant is being helpful or rude. Remember, you called the meeting and you thought carefully about who should be attending. Everyone who you invited belongs to the meeting for a reason. So it's entirely fair to make sure that they give you the benefit of their full attention and perspective. Closing the meeting. The closing phase of the meeting doesn't have to be long, but it does need to set up what happens afterwards. You'll want to set the right tone so participants are motivated to follow through on their action items and feel excited about the project as a whole. And you'll want to make it clear what those action items are so that they know what they need to accomplish. Begin by summarizing the session. Either the leader or a participant you appoint can perform this function. Then be sure to reiterate key points, decisions, and next steps. Along with who is responsible for what task. Consult whoever took notes to make sure you haven't missed anything. This process brings together loose ends and clarifies any misunderstandings. Finally, they advise: give a brief motivational message. Great discussion today, thanks so much, we got a lot done. If the meeting was contentious, that's all the more reason to remind people about what went right. Then, pat yourself on the back, you've done it. Running a meeting gets easier as you become more experienced, and you now have the building blocks. That's the end of the Leading Your Meeting section from Running Meetings. Thank you.